On this episode of Rock School Proprietor Podcast, Mandy and I are each sharing a book recommendation and why we think every music school owner should read them. Mandy's diving into Stuart Brown's Play and why play isn't just for kids. It's essential for creativity, emotional growth, and learning at every age. I'm recommending Simon Sinek's The Infinite Game and how thinking beyond finite goals can transform how you approach running your studio. We also discuss how there's a very interesting intersection of the concepts in both books. Whether you're looking for your next read or just curious what's shaping our thinking, stay tuned for Rock School Proprietor Book Club. If you're a guitar instructor and you've used one of the dozen or so popular method books, you've probably noticed that gap between what's in the books and what students actually want to learn. Most guitar students want to play their favorite songs, and that means strumming, chord changes, timing. If that stuff is even in those method books, it's usually way in the back. I put together the exercises in Complete Guitar Strumming to cover the foundational concepts that all guitar students need, but in a practical way that applies to their goals, which is playing their favorite songs. For instructors, the book comes with an instructor companion guide that walks you through best practices for teaching. I even have training videos that I've used with my own staff that you can access as well. The guide and the videos are free for anyone who wants to use the book for teaching. If you want to get really deep and understand the origins of the book, you can go listen to episode 50 of this podcast or just head over to rockschoolproprietor.com/book for all the details. Welcome to Rock School Proprietor Podcast. My name's John Kazicki.
And I'm Mandy York.
Mandy, remember when we did book club last year?
I love book club.
An episode,
yes.
Yeah, book club episode.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was a popular one. So we decided to do it again.
Yes, I'm excited for this.
Do you do audiobooks? Like I mostly do audiobooks now.
I do. I love a good audiobook, but I'm maybe not quite 50-50, 60-40. I read a little bit more with my physical books than listen.
I feel like
I do sit.
Yeah. I feel like the only times really I have to actually read, aside from maybe on the weekends or like when I'm on vacation, that's the exception, is in the evenings before bed.
Mm-hmm.
But I immediately just pass out if I start reading.
That's really funny. People are different. My husband is that way. He'll fall asleep with the book on his chest. I will not be able to sleep. If I start if I really need to get to sleep, I got to get up early or whatever it may be, I cannot read the night before because, especially if I'm really into the book, I've been known to stay up till 2:00 reading.
Interesting. My wife reads right before bed. But yeah, if I pick up a book and I'll just I would say if it's after like 9 p.m., I start dozing off, It's wild. So, this is not related to the books, but I wanted to mention maybe a plea to our listeners we need some reviews. We need some reviews and some ratings on the podcast.
Yeah. Yes.
Apple Podcast and Spotify. And we've got a little blurb here at the end of every podcast that suggests it. But you and I, we do this show for our listeners to help them and to elevate the industry. And we're not monetizing this show at all. We don't have sponsors. So all we ask, right, is 30 seconds. Go rate it. Give us a 5-star, hopefully. Quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify would be awesome.
Yeah. It helps other people find us. And that's what it's all about. I mean, I love listening to other studio owners and teachers out there. So give us the rating. Share it, and maybe some of this content will be useful to somebody else.
For sure. Okay, so on to book club. If this is something that listeners are into, it was episode 38 was our last book club episode, and I think we're going to have kind of a similar format here. Like, if I remember correctly, your book last time was a music related book.
Yes.
I think mine was actually a learning book. It was Hidden Potential by Adam Grant was my book last time. What was yours the last time? It was a collection of writings, right?
Yes. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Of Music in Mind.
Oh, I
Yes.
put you on the
Music
spot.
in Mind.
Sorry.
You did. I know. I totally blanked for a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
Music in Mind. It was a collection of essays. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But today, similar, you are going to talk about a book on play-based learning, right?
Yeah.
It's
Mm-hmm.
called,
The importance.
is it called?
Well, it's called Play. It's just called
Okay.
Play. How it shapes the brain, opens the imagination, and invigorates the soul.
And who's the
How's
author?
that for a title? Stuart
Yeah.
Brown. Yeah.
Okay. My book is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek.
I know you're a big
So
Simon Sinek fan.
I am. I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. I'm pretty regular listener of his podcast, and I've read a few of his books, and I'll get into that a little bit more. But why don't we start with yours? Play.
Yeah, Play. I was excited about this book. I've had it for a long time. I picked it up several times and glad to get through the whole thing finally. It's not specifically about music. It's not even really specifically about learning, but it was on my list because of the work that I do in early childhood, specifically. In early childhood, we learn through play, right? That's what I'm telling my parents all the time, like play-based learning. Immersing the kids in music every week. This is not formal instruction. It's very informal instruction, right? So,
Yeah.
And this book is interesting. There is a section on early childhood, but it's also talking about play being essential for learning creativity and emotional development for everyone. This isn't just for kids, it's for adults too, right? And I'm able to use it in what I do with the kids, but I just think musicians in general, right? We play music, right? We play our instruments. We play music together. We play together. We don't talk about, what would you even say? I'm going to use my trombone. I'm going to go use my guitar right now. We play, right? Yes. There's so many benefits of play. Stuart Brown spends a lot of time. It's an interesting read. He spends a lot of time digging into the animal kingdom, actually, and how animals play. It's actually it's like a biological necessity for all of us. Play is actually more something we really need in our lives emotionally. When we play, learning really sticks. When we're in play, we're in a mode where learning can really stick. That's why teachers, like really creative and fun teachers, kind of play-based teachers, use music in their classroom, games, right? Stuff like that. If you think back to elementary, high school, there's certain lessons I'm sure that we all can think back to that affected us, that really stuck with us, to use that term again, because they were more playful.
Yes, you're so right. Can I interject something?
Totally.
I remember my fifth grade school year. My teacher was Mr. Brown. His class was so fun because part of the class was like it seems wild to even think about this now, but like once per week, 2 of the kids in the class, we get to bake bread in the class, and then we sell it to the other kids in the school, right? So kids knew to come to his classroom and buy bread on that day. And then we could also get we had these series of points, and we would get like they translated into money, and we learned how to write checks in that class because he had a little store. And with the points that you had, you could write a check and buy little projects, or you could buy cupcakes, so you could bake cupcakes. And that's all I remember about that class.
Yeah.
It this microcosm of playing like you're an adult. It was incredible.
Yes. Yeah, that's what he's talking about here. He gives an example in the book about middle or high school teacher, how he taught about the migration patterns of mallards, of ducks, and how he did that, and interviewing the adult that like could tell you all of these details about the migration patterns. He will never forget it because of the way it was taught by his teacher. Yeah. And play builds creativity, right? So kids that play are, when we play, and play is defined as like freely chosen, right? This isn't like adult led or adult supervised regulated activities, more of like free play, right? Free play allows kids to be creative, to explore, to make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of the research that he's done shows that engineers, for example, he uses like engineers from, I'm pretty sure, Caltech, those that played and used their hands and explored as children were better at problem solving as adults in the field than those that just had theoretical experience. So actually using their hands, playing. In my world, we talk about play strengthening relationships. So, or Brown does. Brown talks about how play can strengthen relationships. With my parents, I talk about attunement. Attunement is a phase around 3 months old where babies and their caregiver, it's a bonding experience, attunement, where eyes meet, the baby has a reaction like a smile, caregivers talk in a funny, baby voice. It's a thing where the brains sync up. And when you're playing in that way, you're strengthening bonds. So play is all of these like real, like physiological and brain building benefits to it. Oh, here's what I was thinking about though as I went through it. You'll have to read the book if you want all of the research and all of the fun details, but I was thinking about a friend of mine who is right now struggling with a music teacher, struggling with retention and kind of stressed about retention of his students, music students, which listeners, we've talked about this before, right?
Yeah.
And how, and the stress that's bringing and into the lessons and into the classroom. And I had immediately thought, well, what about bringing play back in? Like, you're not playing right now, right? You're getting bogged down in the details and the stress of what's happening. Do instructors need to remember to play to avoid burnout and to keep their students engaged, right? We've recently talked about having fun, keeping music lessons fun, remember?
Yeah.
And trying to define that word.
Right.
So I was reading too, and I thought, well, maybe music lessons need to be more playful. Maybe we can replace the word fun with playful.
Yeah, we have talked about how I think instructors often will put so much pressure on themselves to always be teaching, right? Or to always make sure the students are learning. And it becomes very academic. And we miss that aspect of, they can learn if we're just kind of having fun and playing too.
Yes, definitely. Stuart Brown talks about play is not the opposite of work.
Okay.
Play is not the opposite of work.
Say more about that.
Because I think that's something that we think, that we assume, right? If I'm at
all work, no
I am
play
not playing.
That's the saying. All work, no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? So,
yes. Work hard to play hard. We've got all kinds of, sayings around that. But it is not the opposite of work, and that we can have fun, and we need to find fun and playfulness in our work.
I love that.
I think that applies to us as music teachers, a lot. I feel fortunate. My teaching is based in play, right? So perhaps this is a little bit different than a multi-teacher private lesson studio, maybe.
Yeah, because no one's going to ask you why those babies aren't learning to read music.
Yes, exactly. So I do go into work and I like, if I feel like I'm having fun, I'm doing my job, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I need to stop using the word fun. Play. If I feel like I'm really playing and being very playful, I'm doing my job, right? Play builds connections, like I said, not just with those caregiver and child, but when toddlers think that I'm their best friend, some of them, right? They do.
That's
and
awesome.
I know that teenagers make strong connections with their instructors also.
Yeah.
It is the eye contact, it is the playing back and forth that builds those bonds. That's exciting.
You're right.
So when you are in that state, the learning is sticking. The learning sticks. So with my older kids, we are still playing and having fun. Again, when I say older, I'm meaning kindergarten through second grade.
Yeah.
In that setting, it's more games. Those classes are more formal than my early childhood, my younger toddlers, but it's game-based. And it is passing the baton, so to speak, to some of those other kids and saying, okay, now you lead us in some rhythm patterns. Can you improvise some rhythm? Giving them license to be creative and lead all of us. And it is not only me as a teacher in the room dictating every move that the kids make, but playing back and forth, with the songs and the games. We're working together instead of just a teacher and student relationship, right?
Yeah. It's less of a here's a lecture and you're going to toe the line and do what I say, and more about we're going to work on this project together. We're going to do this thing together. Yeah. It makes perfect sense, right? Perfect sense.
That is, it's a really interesting book. I just think it's a good reminder, about how people learn, what the benefits of play are. I'll do like a little side tangent here too. I don't know if we talked about, you and I maybe offline, Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of buzz out there.
I haven't read that one yet, but I've read, what's the one, the one
earlier
about,
book?
Yeah. Something about like why good people are divided on moral issues. I don't,
yeah,
we shouldn't get into that
something.
one.
It's about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
The righteous mind. The righteous mind.
That's the one. Yeah. The Anxious Generation. There's a lot of buzz about that right now. And I saw some parallels with his work and Stuart Brown. Stuart Brown warns against overbooking our kids in adult organized and adult regulated activities, right? Like Jonathan Haidt is very into like a play-based childhood, right? And so all of these adult regulated, structured activities can keep creativity out, right? They're not play-based, child-led. The thing about music classes and lessons is that, if we are creating a really great play-based environment, you've got that. But then it's also going home, like my hope, my goal is that all of this playfulness and this learning through play is going home too, right?
Yeah.
To continue there. So while these are organized, structured, weekly classes, it's very play-based and it continues outside of the classroom. And I would think, as I'm trying to relate this to the older kids too, that's the same. My daughter goes in for her rock band rehearsal and her guitar lessons, and then, I'll just hear her noodling around on her guitar or playing through a song in her bedroom, right? These are such great things for our kids as they get older and as they are, you've got a 16-year-old, John, like life becomes busier and more structured. The demands on kids are so much more than they used to be.
Yeah, for sure.
So much more. Brown talks about this in the book too. So one can argue or say like, where there's no time for fun. Like, that's really great if you have this luxury to spend time, frivolously having fun. Like, good for you. But no, it's actually important. It's not a nice to have. It's something that we all really need. So if just in our world, for example, we're bringing them up in music and giving them these tools, these instruments that they can use in between surgeries as an adult, you know what I mean? High stress jobs, after the PSAT to blow off some steam.
It's encouraging problem solving in different and creative ways as opposed to linear thinking, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting because your book is almost the perfect setup for my book. Now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay.
If I won't go into mine yet if you have more to say about yours, but did you have more to say?
Well, just along these lines of what we're giving our kids now and how it will benefit them in the future. I joke about, my daughter growing up to be a surgeon, but having, music in her that she also pulls out from time to time. As musicians, it is our job and it's our work. We've spent a lot of time in the practice room, a lot of time studying, a lot of time honing our skills as music teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I think sometimes the playfulness, it doesn't seem like play as much as it used to.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
I've had these conversations with other performers, I think especially. But I don't know if this is silly, but I just think I don't know that my kids are going to, major in music as my husband and I did.
Yeah.
But it kind of excites me to know that they will have other passions and whole, well-rounded lives that include music.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just it. It's not something music is just a really big piece of my pie.
Yes.
And, and I think I remember in school, kind of wondering at music minors. They did all these other things, but then they would come in and to the music building for, an ensemble rehearsal or, music lit, something like that. And I just always thought that was really cool. Is that weird? Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I didn't go to music school, so I was the weird one. I was your perspective.
Yes, you are. You're more like that because you had a career and you did other things, but music was still really important and a piece of what you did. It wasn't the everything like it is for my husband and I. So I don't know. That excites me to be able to give that to kids, to students.
Well, so I think this is going to make perfect sense. Why I mentioned this is almost the perfect setup. So when we talked about doing this book club episode again, I haven't read any books that I felt as of late. I haven't read any books that I thought oh man, this would be a great one to talk about. I've read some books that I felt were good, but they don't necessarily apply here. And I read a couple business books recently and I was like, they're okay. Nothing that I felt like I would recommend. So what I had to do was go back to a book that really made an impact on me that I read maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. So some of these details might be a little bit fuzzy. I tried my best to write some notes, but because I read it a few years ago, but it was impactful. So I had previously read Start With Why. Have you read any Simon Sinek?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I Start With Why is on my list, but yeah. Not read
Well, so
anything.
I read Start With Why, and I really enjoyed it. It kind of left a couple, I don't want to say questions, maybe a better way to say it is when I read The Infinite Game, it sort of shined a light on questions maybe I didn't really notice I had about Start With Why. Start With Why is about like, well, what's your why for existing in business? Like, what is your purpose in your business? The Infinite Game is based on another author, James Carson's book, Finite and Infinite Games. And he's more of a philosopher, but Finite and Infinite Games is about like, well, what is the difference between playing a game that is finite and what is a game that is infinite? So I better reference my notes on this one. And this is where I think it's going to relate to what you were talking about play. So finite games have rules, defined players, a winner and a loser, and an end. Infinite games have no finish line. The goal isn't to win, it's to keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, what that is, well, that's learning music.
Mm-hmm.
You don't, you never win learning music, right? I think in music, there can be finite games, but like music as a whole is an infinite game. So like you can say, I am going to learn how to play this piece of music perfectly. That is a finite game, right? So when you're playing, you're figuring out, okay, how do I have to fine tune this until I can do it? Whereas once that's done, it's like, well, where do I want to go next? So the world is at your fingertips, right? What do you want to do? The concept of the infinite game, I think, related to it, Sinek framed it about business. Because there's no winning and losing in business either, right? But
You want to
he makes a
stay in the
point that,
game.
yeah, that's the idea. You want to continue to like grow your business and you want to continue to like expand and so that it can go on. But his argument is that a lot of businesses play it more like a finite game. Like, I want to beat this number on this quarter. I want to be the best, and these are my competition. But because I see a clear parallel between how music and learning music is an infinite game. I also can see how we can approach our businesses as infinite games too, because if we're just sort of expressing that to our clients, then our business becomes an extension of what we do for them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
So this is why I thought like, wow, that's really weird that this is sort of an extension of your book. So I'm going to reference a couple of things that were in the book, and this is from my notes. So in the Infinite Game, Sinek says there's 5 practices for playing an infinite game. One is having a just cause, which is a vision so compelling people would sacrifice for it. Mm. So that's kind of your like big picture why, right? So you can have your why your business exists, but that's the thing that even goes like beyond the why. Like, what is the philosophical purpose of what we're doing, Like,
yeah.
Like for my business, for instance, I think, well, everyone should be playing music. Everyone like who comes to the studio should experience playing music with other people. And that's why the business exists. But like the just cause, why should everyone play music? Well, because it's going to make the world a better place if everyone can like. Yes. I have to rephrase what I wanted to say. If everyone can just drop their baggage and like embrace that, then like, how much better would the entire world be? Mm-hmm. But the thing with the just cause is it's almost like this goal that you can never actually attain, right? It's just this pursuit that's so noble that you pursue it because you know it's right. So anyway, infinite games have a just cause. 2, it builds trusting teams. 3, studying your work. It's about studying your worthy rivals. So your competitors you learn from rather than you just try to beat them. 4, having the courage to lead. So making hard long-term calls. So sometimes, what's right for, say, the business might not be right for every person in it, maybe even yourself. And then 5 is maintaining a flexible playbook. It's a willingness to adapt how you pursue the cause. You're basically like your environment's going to change. You have no control over that.
Right. So
a willingness to adapt what you're doing to ebb and flow with whatever else is happening in the world. COVID, for instance, right? I mean, sad, but I know some studio owners who just threw in the towel.
Oh yeah. Yep. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You're right. We have no control over what's going on. I mean, technology, there's lots of different factors.
Yes.
Who knows what's going to come next?
Right. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to kind of dig into a little bit deeper, though, was that number 3, worthy rivals. Only because, and I didn't really think about this until I was reviewing my notes, but the whole worthy rivals lesson, we did an episode, I had a reference number for it. Episode, what was it? 64. Do you remember when I talked about that competitor that moved into town at my first music school? Mm-hmm. And I didn't handle it well?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. I approached that more like a finite game. Like, I have to beat this guy who's moving into town near my studio. I have to be better than them. And I got so hyperfixated on what he was doing, and I kind of lost focus on what I should have been doing. So in terms of like these 5 practices in the infinite game, I blew it, right? Because I should have been thinking about this competitor as a worthy rival. What are they doing that I could learn from? Mm-hmm. So that then I can adapt what I'm doing rather than, seeing them as a threat and getting all weird, which I did. So I definitely recommend going back and listening to episode 64 where I sort of air my dirty laundry on that one. But yeah, so the worthy rival piece, in retrospect now, when I looked back at my notes from reading The Infinite Game, had I read it then, would it have sunk in? Would I have changed my mind? I don't know. But I definitely was not thinking of that guy in terms of someone I could learn from.
Yeah.
Now, I've got one more point, which is kind of going back to that idea of the just cause. And it's almost like, again, the ultimate why. Let's see. And I'm going to read part of my notes here. Sinek says, a clear just cause is what keeps you from falling into finite thinking in the first place. This is one I think it's like you have to wrap your brain around this concept. What is finite thinking and what is infinite thinking? And this is where it also gets really philosophical, but it's basically a vision for the future that doesn't yet exist. And that, again, goes back to what I was saying about, well, why should everyone play music? Right? Because, well, the more people who play music and the more people who really embrace what this is all about, well, then they're more connected to arts and they're more connected to what it is to be human. And then they're more connected to one another and they see, like, it's all peace and love and touchy-feely.
Yeah.
But it's
real.
Yeah. And the idea, it's like, again, I think there's some leaps of faith involved, because if it can never be fully achieved, it's like you have to just accept, like, all right, I'm going to pursue this, but even if I don't achieve it, well, the strides that I make are going to be better than if I didn't, right? So you kind of have to accept, like, I might not achieve this goal, or I probably won't achieve this goal. It makes me think of, you've been to Europe, right?
I have not.
Oh, you haven't been to Europe? I thought, okay.
No.
So,
No,
all right.
I haven't traveled abroad.
So when I was in France, these massive cathedrals, right, that took like hundreds of years to build, or 100 years, right? So it makes me think about someone who, maybe they're 18, 16, I don't know, and they're like, okay, my job is to work on building this cathedral. And they literally could work on building it their entire lives and never finish.
Yeah.
Because it took that long to build, right? And that takes a lot of faith. So anyway, thoughts on that, on how my book sort of dovetails against yours?
Yeah, I love that. What you just said felt like so noble. You just
Well, it's one thing to say it. I think it's another thing to actually live it. But yeah. But
Very
I
cool.
do
Say
see
the
the parallels. Oh yeah, the title. The title's the Infinite
Game. Okay.
Yeah, but again, I do see those parallels between your book, Play, and my book, because the overarching theme with both of them is this isn't about winning or losing. This is about doing it because what we're going to gain from just doing it is going to make us better.
Yeah. Kind of like for its own sake, right?
Yeah.
Play for its own sake, right? Music for its own sake.
Right.
Not necessarily to accomplish X, Y, and Z specifically, but the overarching grander ideas.
Yes.
Of doing
yes.
It. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think I'm going to read your book. I'm going to read that one.
I really love this book. I really, really enjoyed it, you guys. And I should say too, like, it's full of research and science, which, I love all that stuff. I should say too, like, I'm kind of a serious person. I'm kind of serious. I'm serious about my kids. I'm serious about my work. This isn't a silly book. It's like Play can be kind of serious. It's we seriously need to play. So and it's not a long read. It's not too long. Go for it. You can do it. You'll enjoy it.
I think I don't remember, but I think the Infinite Game also not especially long. But I also would recommend Finite and Infinite Games by James Carse, which is, they're sort of almost companion pieces, kind of.
Cool. All
right. Well, so that'll do it for this episode. So we'll see you next time.
Thanks, John. See you.
All right. Bye. If you have topic suggestions or questions, please contact us at info@rockschoolproprietor.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear suggestions for future shows. We've put together some free resources for teachers and studio owners over at rockschoolproprietor.com and a private Facebook group called The Modern Music School. Please join us over there. On social, I'm at rock.school.proprietor on Instagram and John Kazicki on both LinkedIn and Blue Sky. Your ratings and reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify are always appreciated. And if you enjoyed the show and gain insight from our conversation, then we count that as a win. All we ask in return is that you pay it forward, and please share the show with someone you think needs to hear it.